The positive test. Rachel Green was sitting on the bathroom floor of apartment 20, staring wide-eyed at the pregnancy test in her hands. The second pink line had appeared almost 5 minutes ago, but she remained frozen, as if waiting a little longer might change the result. No, 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 she murmured to herself, squeezing her eyes shut. The scene played in her mind like a movie. Monica's bachelorette party 2 weeks before the wedding, that bottle of tequila, Joey comforting her after an argument with her mother, and then his apartment in the middle of the night. A lapse in judgment, something they both swore to forget the next morning. A knock on the door snapped her out of her thoughts. Rach, are you okay in there? It's been 20 minutes, Monica's worried voice echoed. Rachel quickly stood up, wiping away a stray tear as she hid the test in her pocket. Coming, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady as she faced her pale reflection in the mirror. When she opened the door, she found not just Monica but Phoebe as well, both with concerned expressions. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost, Monica said, placing a hand on her friend's forehead. I just don't feel very well, Rachel answered, avoiding direct eye contact with either of them. Phoebe tilted her head, studying her with that look that always made Rachel feel transparent. Are you sure that's all? Because your aura is totally pregnant. Rachel froze, her eyes widening in panic as Monica laughed. Phoebe, not every stomachache is pregnancy, Monica replied, rolling her eyes. But Phoebe kept staring at Rachel, who felt her face burn. No, seriously. It's exactly the same aura my sister had when she was expecting the triplets. There's a certain orange glow around you. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel looked down at her feet, unable to deny it. When she finally looked up, she saw Monica staring at her with a mix of shock and excitement. Oh my God, you're pregnant, Monica whispered, grabbing Rachel's arms. Rachel felt the tears start to fall as she nodded. I just found out. Oh my God, Monica screamed, hugging her while jumping for joy. I'm gonna be an aunt. Chandler's gonna be an uncle. Phoebe joined the hug. Who knew I'd be the psychic who discovered the pregnancy? But as her friends celebrated, Rachel felt a knot in her stomach that had nothing to do with the pregnancy. Because there was one crucial detail they didn't know. A detail that would change everything. Guys, Rachel interrupted the celebration, her voice quiet and shaky. There's something you need to know. Monica and Phoebe stopped, looking at her expectantly. It's about the father. Rachel took a deep breath, unable to believe she was about to say these words. It's not who you think. What do you mean? Monica asked, confused. Were you seeing someone besides Tag? Rachel shook her head. It only happened once, after your bachelorette party. Monica's eyes slowly widened as she did the math. But that night. Wait, you weren't with Ross, were you? Rachel closed her eyes, gathering all her courage. No, it was Joey. The silence that followed was as if all the air had been sucked out of the apartment. Joey! Monica and Phoebe exclaimed in unison. Before Rachel could respond, the apartment door opened, and Chandler walked in excitedly with Joey right behind him. Guess who scored Nick's tickets for this weekend? Chandler announced, waving the tickets in the air. Joey's eyes met Rachel's, and for a moment time seemed to freeze. Rachel watched his smile slowly fade, as if something in her face had set off an alarm. Hey Rach, you okay? Joey asked, taking a step toward her. And that was when Rachel realized. Her life and everyone else's around her were about to change forever. The secret. Joey Tribbiani was sitting at the counter of Central Perk, distractedly sipping his coffee as he watched Rachel wait tables. His hands were trembling slightly, something rare for someone who usually exuded so much confidence. Dude, you're gonna burn a hole through her with that stare, Chandler commented, sitting next to him. What's going on? Joey jumped, nearly spilling his coffee. What? Nothing. Why would anything be going on? Everything's normal. Totally normal. Chandler raised an eyebrow. Now I'm sure something's up. Joey ran a hand through his hair, nervous. It had been 3 days since Rachel had sent that cryptic message asking to talk in private, but she kept avoiding him. Every time he tried to approach her, she found an excuse to leave. The worst part was, he had a terrible feeling about what it might be. I gotta tell you something, Joey said quietly, making sure no one else could hear. But you gotta swear you won't tell anyone. Not even Monica. Whoa, this is serious, Chandler replied, adjusting his posture. Okay, I swear. Joey took a deep breath. Remember Monica's bachelorette party? You mean the night you mysteriously disappeared and showed up the next day, looking like you'd been run over by a guilt truck? Joey grimaced. Yeah, that night. Rachel and I, we kinda. Chandler's eyes slowly widened as he realized what Joey was implying. You and Rachel? No, shoo. Joey clamped a hand over Chandler's mouth, looking around nervously. It was a mistake. We were drunk. She was upset about her mom. And one thing led to another. But what about Ross? Chandler whispered when Joey finally removed his hand. They weren't together. You know that. Yeah, but it's Ross and Rachel. They're always in some stage of almost together. Joey buried his face in his hands. I know. We promised never to talk about it again. But now she's avoiding me, and I'm afraid that. At that moment, Rachel approached with a coffee pot, clearly tense. More coffee, guys? Chandler looked between the two, sensing the electric tension in the air. You know what, I just remembered I have to, do that thing, at that place. He awkwardly stood up, whispering to Joey, good luck, man, before practically bolting out of the coffee shop. Joey and Rachel stood in silence for a moment until she finally spoke. Joey, we need to talk. For real this time. He nodded, feeling his heart hammering in his chest. I know. My shift ends in an hour. Can we go to your place? When Rachel arrived at apartment 19, Joey had already cleaned up. The pizza leftovers were in the trash, the dirty clothes hidden in the bedroom, and he'd even sprayed some of that expensive cologne he usually saved for special dates. Want something to drink? He asked nervously as she sat on the recliner. Rachel shook her head. No thanks. Actually, that's why I'm here. Joey sat in the dining chair, turning it to face her. Rachel, if this is about that night. I'm sorry. We promised we wouldn't let it affect our friendship. Joey, Rachel said, her voice cracking slightly. She took a deep breath, looking at him with teary eyes. I'm pregnant. The world seemed to stop. Joey felt like the floor had disappeared beneath his feet. You're sure? Rachel nodded. 3 different tests. And a doctor's visit yesterday. And it's mine? He asked, knowing how ridiculous it sounded. Of course it was his. Yes, Joey. It's yours. Joey suddenly stood up, pacing the small apartment like a caged animal. But we used protection. Apparently, it wasn't 100% effective, Rachel replied with a tired sigh. Joey stopped abruptly, turning to face her. What are we gonna do? Do you want? I'm keeping the baby, Rachel stated firmly. That's already decided. The question is, how we tell the others. Especially Ross. Ross. The name dropped like a bomb between them. Ross, who still looked at Rachel like she was the center of the universe. Ross, Joey's best friend since college. Ross, who would never forgive them for this. He's gonna kill me, Joey murmured, sinking back into the chair. Probably, Rachel agreed, a small sad smile forming on her lips. But we have to tell him. Monica and Phoebe already know about the pregnancy, but only that it's you, the father. Joey looked up, feeling a strange mix of terror and something else, something he didn't expect to feel. A twinge of pride. I'm gonna be a dad, he said softly, as if testing the words. Rachel watched him, seeing the expression on his face gradually shift from shock to something more complex. Yes, Joey, you're gonna be a dad. I don't know anything about being a dad, he said, panic clear in his voice. I can barely take care of the duck and the chick. Despite the gravity of the situation, Rachel couldn't help but laugh a little. Well, I don't know much about being a mom either. Guess we'll have to learn together. A silence fell between them, heavy with the weight of the decisions they'd have to make. We have to tell Ross, Joey finally said, summoning all his courage. I owe him that. We owe him. Rachel nodded, her gaze meeting his with a mix of fear and determination. Yeah, we do. But how? Before they could come up with a plan, the apartment door suddenly opened. Joey, you won't believe what just. Ross froze in the doorway, his eyes darting from Joey to Rachel, taking in the intimacy and tension of the scene. What's going on here? The truth comes out. Ross stood in the doorway, his gaze alternating between Joey and Rachel, who stood in a silence heavy with guilt. Everything okay? He asked, stepping inside. You guys look weird. Joey and Rachel exchanged a quick panicked glance. This wasn't the moment they'd planned, but maybe there was no good moment for news like this. Actually, Ross, Rachel began, her voice betraying her nervousness, we really needed to talk to you about something important. Yeah, Joey agreed, standing up from the chair, his hands shaking slightly. Why don't you sit down? Ross frowned, clearly confused, but sat on the recliner. You're freaking me out. What's going on? Joey looked at Rachel, silently begging her to take the lead. She took a deep breath. Ross, I recently found out something that's going to change a lot in my life. In all of our lives, actually. You're freaking me out even more, Ross said, leaning forward. I'm pregnant, Rachel blurted out, the words coming out like a sigh. For a moment, Ross seemed to process the information, his face shifting from confusion to something that looked almost happy. His eyes lit up. Rach, that's wow. He stood up as if to hug her, but stopped when he saw the somber expression on her face. Wait, this isn't good news. It's complicated, Rachel replied, giving Joey a meaningful look. That's when the penny dropped. Ross looked between the two, his eyes slowly widening with understanding. Joey, he asked, his voice almost a whisper. Joey's the father? The silence that followed was answer enough. Ross took a step back, as if he'd been physically punched. How? When did this happen? He asked, his voice now laced with a mix of confusion and betrayal. At Monica's bachelorette party, Joey admitted, finally finding his voice. It was just once, Ross. We were drunk. I wasn't thinking clearly. Once, Ross repeated incredulously. You two, behind my back? And now what? Are you two together? No, Rachel and Joey said in unison. It was a mistake, Ross, Rachel explained, taking a step toward him. Something that never should have happened. Ross held up his hands, stopping her from coming closer. No, I can't. I can't process this right now. Ross, please, Joey begged, moving toward him. You're my best friend. I never meant to hurt you. Well, you did. Ross exploded, his voice echoing through the small apartment. Both of you did. He turned to Rachel, the pain evident in his eyes. All these years. All the times you said I was too jealous, too paranoid. And now this. Ross, it's not like that, Rachel tried to explain, tears starting to stream down her face. Joey and I aren't romantically involved. It was one night, a mistake. A mistake that'll change everyone's lives, Ross finished bitterly. And by the way, great choice of words, Rachel. A mistake. I'm sure your kid will love knowing they were conceived by mistake. Hey, that's not fair, Joey interjected, stepping forward. We're trying to do the right thing here, man. The right thing. Ross let out a humorless laugh. The right thing would have been keeping your pants on, Joey. A tense silence fell over the trio. Ross rubbed his face, suddenly looking exhausted. I need to get out of here, he muttered, heading for the door. Ross, wait, Rachel called, but he was already gone, slamming the door behind him. Joey and Rachel stood frozen, the echo of the door still reverberating in the silent apartment. That was, Joey began. Horrible, Rachel finished, sinking onto the couch. Exactly as horrible as I imagined. Joey sat beside her, hesitating before placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. He'll get over it, Rach. Eventually. Rachel looked at him, her eyes red and puffy. Will he? Because I don't think I would if I were in his shoes. Before Joey could respond, the door opened again. But this time it was Chandler and Monica who entered, looking concerned. We just ran into Ross in the hallway, Monica said quickly. He looked upset, wouldn't talk to us. Her gaze fell on Joey and Rachel sitting together on the couch, and her expression shifted to understanding. Oh, you told him? You knew? Chandler asked, looking at his wife in surprise. Monica nodded. Rachel told me about the pregnancy, and about who the father is. Wait, Joey interrupted, looking at Chandler. How did you know? Chandler had the decency to look embarrassed. You told me today, remember? At Central Perk. About the night, not the pregnancy, Joey exclaimed. Well, it wasn't hard to put two and two together when Ross stormed out of the building like he was being chased by ghosts. Monica held up her hands, cutting off the argument. That doesn't matter now. What matters is how we handle this situation. Rachel wiped her tears, squaring her shoulders. What do you mean? I mean we're family, Monica stated firmly. All of us. And families face crises together. I know it's complicated, especially for Ross, but he'll get over it. And we'll help you, both of you, she corrected, looking at Joey. Get through this. Monica's right, Chandler agreed, sitting in the chair across from the couch. Besides, Ross has always been dramatic. Remember when he found out I was dating his sister? He almost had a meltdown. And now we're married and everything's fine. This is completely different, Rachel argued. Yeah, but the point is he got over it. And he'll get over this too, Chandler insisted. Joey looked between his friends, feeling a wave of gratitude. You guys aren't disappointed in me? Monica sat next to him, patting his hand. Joey, things happen. It's not ideal. But now you and Rachel are having a baby. And that baby is going to need all of us. Especially you two. Rachel and Joey exchanged a nervous glance. They hadn't discussed what the pregnancy would mean for their relationship, if there even was one. As if reading their thoughts, Monica continued. You don't have to figure everything out now. You have time. But you need to be on the same page for the baby's sake. You're right, Rachel agreed, wiping the last of her tears. One thing at a time. Where's Phoebe? Joey suddenly asked, noticing their friend's absence. She had a massage scheduled, Monica explained. But she knows about the pregnancy. Actually, she was the one who figured it out first. Classic Phoebe, Chandler remarked with a smile. A comfortable silence fell over the group, each lost in their own thoughts about the future. Finally Joey spoke. I'm gonna do my best for this baby, he promised, his voice steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. I don't know anything about being a dad, but I'll learn. Rachel looked at him, a small smile forming on her lips. I know you will, Joey. Monica and Chandler watched the scene, with a mix of concern and hope. The group's dynamic was about to change forever, and no one knew exactly what the future held. But one thing was certain, they'd face it together, as they always had. Meanwhile, somewhere in New York, Ross walked alone through the busy streets, trying to process the news he'd just received. His mind was flooded with unanswered questions, and a pain that seemed endless. But amid the whirlwind of emotions, one certainty stood out. Nothing would ever be the same again. Adjustments. 2 weeks had passed since the bombshell, and apartment 20 had never felt so divided. Monica was in the kitchen with Joey, trying to teach him the basics of baby food, while Chandler nervously flipped through a parenting magazine, occasionally reading passages aloud. Joey, pay attention, Monica insisted, holding up a spoon of mashed carrots. Babies can't eat pizza for the first few months. Or sandwiches. Or lasagna. Joey looked genuinely devastated. But those are the best foods. What do they eat then? Breast milk, then purees, Monica explained patiently. And you need to learn how to make those purees. Hey, listen to this, Chandler interrupted, reading from the magazine. Modern dads are discovering that equally sharing parenting responsibilities strengthens the family bond. That's for you too, he added, looking pointedly at Joey. I know, Joey replied, looking overwhelmed. It's just, man, there's so much to learn. The apartment door opened, and Rachel walked in, carrying several shopping bags. Her face lit up when she saw Joey focused on Monica's lesson. Learning to cook for the baby? She asked, setting the bags on the counter. Trying, Joey replied with a nervous smile. But apparently babies can't eat anything fun. Rachel laughed, but her smile faded when she noticed Monica's tense expression. What's wrong? Monica exchanged a quick glance with Chandler before answering. Ross called. The silence that fell over the apartment was almost palpable. Ross had practically disappeared since learning about the pregnancy, communicating only with Monica and occasionally Chandler. He refused to be in the same room as Joey or Rachel. What did he say? Rachel asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. He's stopping by later to pick up some things he left, Monica explained. I told him you two would probably be here. Joey suddenly looked pale. You don't think he still wants to kill me, do you? No, Monica replied, though she didn't sound very convincing. He said he needs to talk to you. Said he's had time to think. Rachel sat in one of the kitchen chairs, instinctively placing a hand on her still flat stomach. Maybe that's good. We need to clear the air eventually. Yeah, Joey agreed, though he seemed to be trying to convince himself. We're adults. We can have a rational conversation. Speaking of adults, Chandler interjected, standing up from the couch. We need to discuss living arrangements. Joey looked confused. What? Well, at some point, you two will need to figure out how to raise this baby, Chandler explained. Rachel can't keep living with the pregnant sister of your child. Rachel and Joey exchanged an uncomfortable glance. It was a topic they carefully avoided these past weeks. We still have time to figure that out, Rachel said quickly. Let's just deal with Ross first. Speak of the devil. Monica murmured as knocks sounded at the door. Joey immediately ducked behind the kitchen counter, as if seeking protection. Chandler rolled his eyes before heading to the door. Ross stood in the hallway, looking as uncomfortable as everyone inside the apartment. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hair looked like it hadn't seen a comb in days. Hi, he said simply, stepping inside slowly as Chandler moved aside. Hi, everyone replied in unison, creating an almost comical moment amid the tension. Ross spotted Joey half hiding in the kitchen and Rachel sitting rigidly in the chair. For a long moment no one spoke. So, Monica finally broke the silence, her voice artificially cheerful. Anyone want coffee? Or tea? Or maybe something stronger? I'm good, Ross replied, still looking at Joey and Rachel. Actually, I came to talk. To both of you. Joey slowly emerged from his hiding spot in the kitchen. Look, Ross, I know you must be furious, and you have every right to be. I broke the bro code, betrayed your trust. Joey, Ross interrupted, holding up a hand. I've spent the last 2 weeks thinking about this. A lot. And yes, I'm hurt. Yes, part of me wants to punch you. But, he took a deep breath. You're my friend. And Rachel. He looked at her, a complex emotion crossing his face. We weren't together. I don't have the right to be this angry. Rachel blinked, surprised. That's surprisingly mature of you, Ross. Well, I had some emergency therapy sessions, Ross admitted with a small smile. And I realized that, like you always said, we really were on a break. A years-long break, actually. Joey took a hesitant step forward. So we're okay? We're not okay, Ross clarified quickly. But we will be. Eventually. And I want to be there when the baby's born. Not as the dad, obviously, but as Uncle Ross. The relief that flooded the apartment was almost tangible. Monica let out an audible sigh, and Chandler visibly relaxed his shoulders. That means a lot to us, Ross, Rachel said sincerely, tears in her eyes. Especially to the baby. They'll need all the aunts and uncles they can get. A more comfortable silence fell over the group, but it was quickly interrupted when the door opened again, and Phoebe burst in like a whirlwind. I felt it. I was meditating and felt the negative vibes lift, she exclaimed, looking around the room with a wide smile. You made up. How do you always know these things? Chandler asked, genuinely intrigued. It's a gift, Phoebe replied with a shrug before turning to Ross. This calls for a song. Before anyone could protest, she'd already pulled out the guitar she always carried and started strumming. Ross was sad, so very, very sad, because Joey and Rachel made a baby, but now he sees that life's just like that. And everyone's an uncle except Joey, who's the daddy. The group burst into laughter, the tension of the past days finally dissipating. Even Ross couldn't help but smile as he shook his head. Some things never change, he remarked, referring to Phoebe's impromptu songs. And some things change completely, Rachel added, her hand once again resting on her stomach. Joey watched the gesture, a strange emotion washing over him. A mix of absolute terror and a growing happiness he couldn't explain. He moved closer to Rachel, hesitantly placing his own hand next to hers. We'll figure it out, he said quietly, just for her to hear. Somehow, Rachel looked at him, a soft smile on her lips. Yeah, we will. And as the rest of the group watched the scene, each had their own thoughts about the future. Monica imagined what it would be like to be an aunt.